There we go.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I would say special, but this is going to be something we're going to try to do on a weekly basis now. Locker Room Access will now be bringing some football coverage once a week. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
for it. I've got my guy, Demont, here. You guys know him better as B Dragon from the forum. He's going to be my co host for this. We'll have some guests here and there where we can. But this is something that we've wanted to do. Truthfully, kind of my fault scheduling that we're starting it now as opposed to the first game of the season. But nonetheless, we are excited to do this for everybody.
Yeah, man, this is super exciting. Football is always a passion of mine. Obviously, I've had the weekly article here on LRA for 6 seasons now. So we're in season 6 and locked in. And yeah, just having a little extra space to talk some football in addition to all the great coverage we have for hoops. I think it's pretty awesome. I've loved doing the season previews the last few years. So I'm having a good time and get ready to jump in and chop it up.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we'll jump right into it. If you guys haven't been keeping up as much, it's okay, understandable. It's still pretty early. Most people are still doing some of their summer stuff, but Virginia football is off to a pretty good start, if we're being completely honest. So on the season, we're 2-1 so far. The lone loss was a very, very tight loss to NC State that we'll go over a bit here more in a second. But on the plus side, the wins, utter dominance is the best way to put it. Start to finish, manhandled Coastal Carolina to begin the year, and then actually set school records for yardage this past week in a home game against William and Mary. Went for 700 total yards.
That's still like I remember like seeing some people post about it in the first half on LRA about, hey, what's the record? Hey, could we get to the record? Could they do it? And I was like, nah, whatever. That's just, let's just close up the game and see how it goes from there. And then kind of as it wrapped up and you realize like what it was, I was like, 700 yards is just a stupid number. Like, I don't know any other way to describe it. Like, and you tell that to even if someone who's like a layperson when it comes to football, just a casual fan of any part of the sport, you're like, oh, they racked up 700 yards of offense. Their eyes are like, holy, how do you do that? Like, and
Yeah. Well, especially because that game, I was kind of not really fully tuned in. I was trying to watch on my phone as much as I could. But they pulled the starters with what, about 5 minutes or so left in the second quarter?
yeah, that was
Roughly.
exactly what I was going to say. I mean, I feel like the second half, pretty much everyone was just chilling for the better part of the second half, and definitely about a fourth quarter. And so, even when they were still kind of running with the shell offense or offensive unit, they were basically running shell plays. Like they like I said, probably about 5 minutes ago before the half, and they had already scored 42 points at that point. And it was interesting in my preview of the game. I mentioned I wanted the over, which is at 51 and a half. And one of the reasons was Virginia's been so hot this year, getting out the blocks. They're averaging about 26 points a game. Previously, before their first two games, this one honestly blows that record up a little bit. They're dropping 26 points a game in the first half. Like, they were nailing first half overs and getting out the quick starts. And I thought they were going to do that again. I thought that Morris was going to want to show that the way the NC State game was a fluke. It was not the norm. And I thought that, they were going to impose their will on the line up front as well and trying to get right back to the success we've seen them have at the running the ball. I did not know it was going to lead to the explosion that we saw, though. Yeah, some days it just clicks, I guess.
For sure. And with that, too, some good stats on the team this year, just to put in perspective for everyone. Because, obviously everyone thinks this time of year before conference play really begins, there's a lot of cupcakes people are playing. And truthfully, you don't always mean to, but the score does get run up in some of those games because teams are just outmatched. It is what it is. That's just part of the game. But to put it in perspective with just how good the Hoos have been in that, and keep in mind it didn't count as an ACC game, but they played an ACC level opponent and a pretty decent one in NC State. Not a complete knockoff, but a decent team, formidable at least. So far in the ACC, number 1 in yards per game, number 2 in points, and number 2 in rushing yards. Nationally, that equates to number 8 in yards, number 8 in rushing, 18 in points, and they're number 26 in passing yards as well. So, it's been a pretty balanced attack. Dragon, I think you said before the show started, you got the numbers on yards per game where they're at. Like, rushing versus passing?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking a team that's putting up 289 yards a game passing right now. That's good for 25th in the nation. And like the rushing stats, 266 yards per game. Um, we sat here 3, 4 weeks ago with Jackie and we were saying if they can put up, 250 was kind of that number. If they could do that against Coastal, we know that they're having a good game and we knew that it would be rolling. They're averaging 266 right now. And like I said, that includes a game against a formidable ACC opponent, which might have been their best ground game of all.
Yeah.
So that's just something I've said it multiple times in the forum. I think we're seeing the truest version of Tony Elliott's offense right now. All what he always wanted it and envisioned it to be, and for whatever reason, it never got there. And I think for as much as some of us have been hard on Dez, I will give him his flowers right now. So as an OC, I think he's calling pretty great game. I don't believe in perfection, but I have no problems with his play call. Some people griped about the play call at the end of the NC State game. I had no problem. I thought it was a fine play call. The execution was poor, but that's not his fault. The play call was fine. I have problems with play calls when we're doing wonky trick plays in odd places and getting out of rhythm. I don't think that play was out of rhythm. I feel like we've been in a rhythm. We've seen the Who's in a rhythm throughout the season on offense and be very comfortable mixing the run and the pass. And 289 in the air and 266 on the ground. That's about as balanced as you can ask for.
Oh yeah, for sure. And honestly, that brings me to so many things I want to expand on just talking about the offense. First thing I'll throw out to give Dez a little bit more credit. So on third down, this is ranking ACC and then nationally. On offense, they're converting 59% of third downs. That's number 1 in the ACC, number 11 nationally. That's impressive. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. And if we're being truthful, you could probably stat check me on this, but this is more going from a feel thing. I don't feel like most of those are 3rd and 1s that we're just kind of running a quick little dive to get. Like they're converting a lot of 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. I mean, they're consistently making plays, making the right moves. Chandler's throwing some darts, if I'm being honest. I mean, he's kind of smoking the ball around on third down, getting it to where it needs to be. I've noticed a lot of it. Well, at least it seems like a lot of curl routes that are going about a yard beyond the first down marker, just get it and go. And I appreciate that. Like that's what I want out of a football team. Every play doesn't have to be a home run, especially when it's third down. Like get what you need to get, keep the chains moving. Let's go. Like I enjoy this.
Yeah, no, that's a great point on kind of the way they're setting up those third downs. It's old cliche, third down will tell you how well a football team's doing. And I knew just having watched 3 games this year that the numbers were good. And I feel like every week it's always, going into the second or third quarter, they're, 10 to 15, 11 to 14, something like that, which sets up for a pretty good pace. But that's impressive. Like I said, it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the ball. They're all trying to stop you. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, we've all sat here and watched them be stopped in previous iterations of this team. And that's just not happening right now. I know for the first time in a long time, like when I see third down come up, and even if, like you said, it used to be if it was 3rd and 3 or more, I was like, oh God, I don't know what's going to happen here. Now I kind of stroll into it. I'm like, all right, we're going to, whatever the call is, it's going to be a smart call. And generally speaking, I've been pretty happy with it. And even when they haven't been converted, it hasn't been like, oh my gosh, why did we make that particular call there? It's, I'm miscommunicating. Again, you're not going to be perfect at it. Sometimes you're going to miss it. But I don't think it's due to a lack of trying to do, or I don't think it's because they're trying to do too much or a lack of talent or ability to, get the block, to get open or whatever. I don't think that's the case this time.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. I know for most people, it's been kind of hard watching the Virginia offense last couple of years. I mean, just being truthful, the Elliott era didn't get off to a great start. Like, there's no sugarcoating that, right? Like, we all know, we all saw it. Most of the things people have complained about have been offensively. Well, I want to give them credit because, I mean, this is the first time that they really, they had the facilities, they have the backing, they have the things in place, and they went out and they acted upon it, right? They had a good strategy getting guys in here, and it's showing up. I mean, I don't know what that's going to mean long term, but I can say right now, like I'm very happy with it. I mean, it's about all you could ask for as a fan for somebody that you wanted to see them just get a fair shot at something. And to me, at least, like in what the college game is now, it feels like they're getting that fair shot, and I think they're running with it. They really do.
No, absolutely, and I mean, they made smart investments too with the money and the opportunity that they were given. They went out, they rebuilt that offensive line. I believe it's five new faces or 5 new bodies and new places at the very least, with 4 new faces on it. Obviously, we have a new face, a signal caller, and then we complemented it with some talent we already had in house at the skill positions, and we brought in just enough spice there to kind of augment that and help boost those positions up. But like you said, I think they are making the most of it. Yeah, say what you want to say about the schedule. You got to play who you got to play, and the fact that they're winning these games and they're winning them running away, and then the games are supposed to be competitive in it. You're a play away from what should have been a walk away win. I have no complaints about that. I can live with that with this team. Again, it's I hate to say you have to have a feel for things and how the way things are going, but when you feel this, and these aren't accidents. You don't run up 700 yards of offense by accident. You don't average 500 plus yards a game on just playing bad opponents. There are plenty of teams. Our opponent this week has played nothing but bad opponents all year. And guess what? Stanford ain't close to 500 yards in offense a game right now.
I don't know if they've got 500 yards total, but that's
yeah, they might not. They seriously might not, actually.
But to the testament, too, though, to the offensive line, another fun stat, they haven't allowed a sack this year. So they've held up well. I mean, that's a testament, too, to Chandler doing a good job, getting rid of the ball when he needs to, doing the right thing for the most part. But I mean, that's big time for them. Like that's a confidence as a coach that you can really open your playbook up when you have those type of numbers over a couple consecutive games that now you're like, oh boy, I see what we've got to work with.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too. I don't want to beat too much on it, but another thing with the offense that makes me feel good about it. Just a quick specific example. I think back to, I believe it was 2 seasons ago. Well, maybe it was last year when we played. No, it was 2 seasons ago. We played the game at Maryland. It was a Friday night game. I don't know how much of that you remember.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I remember it very well.
We had a decent lead early in that game, pretty quick. And I swear, it seemed like every play we scored on was some type of ingenious trick play, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as that game went on, the fact that Maryland, truthfully, was the more talented team kind of wore on us, I think. They kind of pounded us out. And they did the same thing last year when they came to Charlottesville, where they just kind of wore us down. That's the thing I think that I've noticed the most this year is the stuff that you could call gimmicky. It doesn't feel that way. Like it feels like it's flowing in what they're trying to do as opposed to, okay, this is our home run money play. Like I really like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. And something I talked about it going into the Coastal game and coming out of it, I saw it. They backed it up in the last 2 games. What that is, you hear a lot of people talk about it with basketball. It looks like a team's working hard to get their points. And it's the same thing in football. Is a team working hard? What does it mean? Are they really struggling to complete drives? Are they having to go into their bag to come up with gadget plays in order to get chunk yards to kind of keep drives alive and get into the end zone? I think those 2 Maryland games are a great example. In really the last 2 seasons, the best plays typically came off of either AC working some sort of AC magic somehow and just making it work, or we ran some sort of a gadget play to get there. But those were, without those, the team wasn't efficient enough to actually take care of business offensively. Whereas this year, I don't think of those plays at all. I'm sure that they've ran some of them, but they don't stick out in my head. They might be wrinkles in the play where we faked the handoff or faked the pitch and gone, right to the direct running back. But that's a much different gimmick play than I'm going to split my tackle out wide and hope he can run a slant route, which is the world we've lived in previously. They are beating teams with, pretty much running straight at them and running right at them and just playing straight up football. And their Jimmy and Joes are better than your Jimmy and Joes. And that's the difference maker right now, which is amazing.
Oh, yeah. And it's something, too, that, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I think this week was the first time that they did the, I'll call it a wildcat, I guess. I don't know what the best call for the formation is, but where they're direct snapping to the running back and he's actually lining up his quarterback with Chandler either next to him or behind, however the formation sets up. But it feels to me like so rehearsed to the point that it doesn't feel like it's a one-play gimmick. Like we were saying, they're expanding on that. Like you watch these plays that they're doing and you see so many different options that could branch off of the set. To pitch it, to throw it back, to, counter, to do. There's so many different options, right? There's so many things that they could potentially do with it that it really does. It feels like such an honest, concerted effort because they feel so much more comfortable within the offense with what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. That was a big difference. I thought coming out of the Coastal game, I felt like I said it to someone on the board. They ran them very vanilla offense to start it, but with
Mhm.
so many of those sets that you can see, like, oh, there's a wrinkle here. They put this on film intentionally because they want someone to see it because they're going to develop it into something else down the line. And now you're starting, like you said, you're starting to see some wrinkles added in. Now suddenly it's a fake. The pitch is now a fake pitch with a slant behind it, or something else going deep over the top. There's another wrinkle coming behind it, and that's what good play callers do and good offenses do. They put little breadcrumbs throughout the season, and suddenly by week 10, you're like, oh, we're on the fourth version of this play, but it's not the same play anymore. But you've just been slowly feeding it to people and getting people to look one way, and then you set it up with a counter. And that's something that they haven't done previously under Elliott. So it's great to see it now.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I think we discussed that in the in-game forum thread too, in kind of real time. Was for me, I was kind of at first like, I really don't know that I want these types of plays on film because it's William and Mary, and we really could have just quarterback snuck them to death and picked up the yardage. Like it didn't. We want to put up 700 yards that way, right? Obviously, but like some
Right.
of the stuff they were running maybe didn't need to be ran. But then the other part of me, once we're sitting there discussing it, is thinking about it. And I'm like, really, truthfully, this is a good idea because when you set up, even if it's just a direct snap and he's running straight ahead, right? When you have Chandler kind of flaring out or kind of setting something else up, it does. It makes your future opponents, defensive coordinators, nervous because we have very talented running backs that we're going pretty deep on right now.
Yeah.
Other fun stat: Jamari Taylor leads the country in rushing touchdowns, so that's
Nice.
wonderful. Him and Whaley both 150-yard games. It's something that we've got 3 of, I think, in the last like 20 years or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're good. Like they're looking good on top of how good the team is looking. But putting those things out there to where maybe it's something that another coordinator has to think about, and on top of that, we also got to rep in to make sure, hey, the snap goes well, they handle it, everything's going right.
Mhm.
It really is pretty smart, truthfully. I mean, at first I was kind of a detractor of it, like in the moment, but then thinking about, it, I'm like, wow, this is actually good stuff, and I hope it pans out for future games coming up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the difference between those being the all out gimmick plays you're putting on film that you can only run once because once you're on film, you burn them essentially. Whereas these are very much, we're showing you a base and it's something that you have to prepare for and think about. And we'll probably never run it again, but it's in the repertoire now. And now from then on, it's only going to be wrinkles and versions of that base that they're going to play off of. But like to your point, the DC's got to take at least 5 to 10 minutes next week or whatever week it is to talk it over, review it, and think of what are the wrinkles they're going to run out of? What is it, and prep their team on it? And that might be 5 to 10 minutes that they just miss on installing something else. And
Yep,
so, yeah,
exactly.
there's logic to the madness there.
Oh yeah. Well, it puts them in such a headspace too of when you're on the field. Like when you're on the field, like you're thinking about these things because that's what you've done all week, right? Like you've prepped for the game that you're in. So yeah, you're playing football, but like it's going through your mind too. Like these are my assignments. This is what I need to know. This is statistically what we're probably looking for. Well, then you have these options that they haven't actually seen what becomes of that option, right? You're aware, like, hey, okay, so quarterback could flare out, they could pitch it back to him. Well, he could throw it, he could run it. I mean, we have no idea what's coming out of this. It's been good stuff. I don't know. I don't want to
Yeah.
dig too deep on it, but I've really appreciated what they've been doing, trying to keep coordinators on their toes. Hopefully, in game situations, maybe some relapses and thoughts, some mess ups here and there by the
Yeah.
defense. I think it's good. I think they've set up well.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, and that's the difference too. I think you combine that with who they're playing moving forward. 'Cause that's the other part of it is if you have if you're playing an experienced opponent who's seen everything and done everything, you think of, at the pro level, I think back to a Ray Lewis type who could sit there and watch all the audibles that Peyton was going through, and you would see him counter it with audibles for his side of the ball. And that's just
Mhm.
because they had that encyclopedic Rolodex in their head. The teams that we're playing coming up here don't have those type of players or those type of Lawrence Taylor-esque athletes who can just out football you because they're just a freak of nature. And so suddenly, they have to rely on their scouting report. They have to rely on, what we were taught, see ball, get ball, and hope that that's enough. And suddenly, that's where you create those breakdowns. And I think that's the difference, that's a difference right there, a huge difference maker.
Yeah, for sure. So to keep things moving, we'll kind of wrap up the offense. I do want to real quick though do we can each go. I can go first, whatever, doesn't matter. But do a quick good surprise and maybe area of concern. I don't want to call it a bad surprise. I don't really think that's fair because of how well they've been doing. But maybe the top end versus what you think needs to be worked on. For me, I think the best thing I've seen so far is that depth at running back. I got a little nervous when Noah got hurt this past weekend. Not that I was worried about the game specifically, but like, okay, now are we down to one? Like, let's see what we got. And then Whaley came in and man, he's good. Like, I think you actually called him in our.
I called him. I told you in the preseason show. I was like,
he's a dog. Man. He's
this.
Good.
Yeah, there's something there. I think he's going to be somebody.
No, for sure. And then kind of the other side for me, I know I have two things I want to go over real quick. I know that we said that they haven't given up a sack, but I do think the right tackle position has been a little bit more nerve-wracking for me just watching the game. I mean, I understand nothing negative has really come of it yet, but it feels like a spot to me that a team like a Florida State, for example, that could have some real athletes on the edge could maybe take advantage of. Now, there's been, in fairness, some injury and some rotation and stuff there too. So hopefully that's something that clears up, but that's just one thing to me I'm kind of concerned with looking at going forward. Beyond that, the other thing we've kind of talked about this a little, I think I mentioned it somewhere in the forum too. Just from kind of watching the games, I do feel like defenses, if they can really get some pressure on Chandler, he can kind of force some throws and get in a hurry a little bit. Obviously, we've seen what happened with the state game. For those that didn't see, if he could have checked it down, there probably was a walk-in touchdown. I don't want to say for sure, but he had a pretty wide open Dak Twitty underneath that. I don't know if he couldn't see him or what happened there, but instead of he was rolling out, he's almost to the sideline. Instead of just getting out of bounds or throwing it away or something, he tried to force a pass that got intercepted. It cost him the game. Truthfully, it did. But that's the type of thing that to me has kind of made me a little nervous. Is I felt like there's been a few throws that honestly maybe could have been picked off but haven't been. Which he's done a good job. Like I'm not trying to beat on him or anything, but that's just one area of concern for me that I've seen a little bit of. What do you think, Dragon? What you got?
Yeah, I think a surprise for me is I'll say with the whiteouts and just how they've played in general. That receiving core has played in general. I was a little skeptical of them, just kind of what we would get and how they would perform. I know we had high expectations, but I feel like, I look at, what Cam Ross has done, what Trell Harris has done. Their numbers are great so far. And, even if you start to get down the line a little bit, like you say, you start getting into the tight ends, it's just, there's so many weapons. And I feel like guys have really stepped up. And I just love how much that we're spreading the ball around. I feel like in the past we've become very, one receiver stands out and becomes the go-to target. And when you look at the receptions, it's, a Washington with 90 and the next closest person's at like 40 at the end of the season. You're like, oh, well, that's why suddenly things get shut down because defense are able to key in on that one target. I feel like this year we're seeing a lot more balance and spread out, and it's not a drop off as they go to, receiver 2, 3, and down the line. In terms of things I would like to see kind of fixed or short up maybe a little bit, and it just plays off of what you just talked about, and this isn't a knock on Morris, but just on the system as a whole, I'd like to see us get the ball out of his hand a little bit quicker, and just be a little bit more direct in his decision making, a little bit more. I think they have the receivers who can get open quickly and can run efficient routes. We don't have to necessarily run the long drag routes and some of the different things to make plays. So, and I think also to your point, if they practice it a little bit more and get a little bit more of those timing routes, getting that ball out on time, it will help to alleviate some of those more errant throws where Morris is feeling like he's having to force it. And especially, like you said, like they're going to run into a buzzsaw in Florida State. They're going to face some better defenses coming up. And so the more they can stay on rhythm and get that ball out of his hands and keep that tempo moving, I think it's only going to help them. And also it just, quite frankly, limits the amount of hits Morris has to take because he's the linchpin to the season. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's something too I'm kind of looking forward to seeing in a game like Florida State. Obviously we'll probably be a fairly decent dog in that game, which is, that's fine. Whatever. They're a top 10 team right now. It is what it is. But I'm interested in seeing kind of how that they scheme for those things. That's the type of things I'm looking for now at this point, since I've seen the offense, what it can be. How are they adjusting on the fly? Like how many chips are we bringing in? How many extra blockers? How many sets are we running where somebody's getting an extra handle and just to slow it up? The type of stuff that you hope to see. At this level, truthfully. Like
Yeah,
I want to see it now. You know what I mean? Like I have confidence that they'll do it, but it needs to be proven too. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah, I mean those are the difference makers that you either get blown out by 20 against a Florida State, or you're in a ball game with them and maybe have a shot to win it. Is how well can you bring in that? Like I said, if you bring in that extra blocker, if you hold that tight end back from his route because you need extra protection, can you get the ball out to the receivers? Can the receivers get open on time and keep the chains moving, or do we have to go? Gimmick essentially at that point becomes a gimmick. We were running 4 and 5 guys downfield and hoping that they can make something happen, and you're leaving your offensive line to just be sacrificed to whatever the wills of the defense are.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of defense, we'll swap over. We'll go ahead and get rolling on that. We kind of went along on offense, but that's okay because it's been fun stuff. Like I've enjoyed it. So okay.
We've waited a long time to have an offense to talk about like this. You got to go back to Brennan Armstrong days since we've had an offense that was exciting and fun.
True. Not to kick the staff, but we have kind of waited almost 4 years now to be excited for offense again. So like it's kind of nice in a way. I mean,
5 years,
I want to
really.
give them their flowers now. I'm so excited for them that we can talk about this with a smile. Like it's so nice. But flipping over to the defense, they've been off to what I would call a pretty good start. I mean, I think they're giving up. You told me before the show, was it 19 points a game? Is that right?
19 points a game, which is about middle of the pack in terms nationally. That's going to put them at 58th in the nation. Yeah, they're good. They're definitely a bend don't break unit. They haven't really made too many forced a lot of turnovers or anything like that. They are getting a little bit of pressure up front, which is good, but the D line hasn't necessarily gotten home on its own, which is still a problem and more of a problem than I thought. I'll just skip right ahead and just say that's been a surprise. I expected a little bit more out of that unit this year than what we've seen so far, especially given the level of competition. So, and it's just, the other part I would say there's been at least twice this year I can think of big plays that have been given up through what I can only describe as a lack of communication on the back end, where it just seems like guys just didn't quite know what was going on, which that's what happens when you bring in 7 new faces and your leader is sitting on injury. So, hopefully that gets cleaned up a little bit with Cam getting ready to come back. But yeah, those are the errors that have to be cleaned up, or those are errors that they've been punished, but it will get much worse with more aggressive offenses.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Watching that state game early on, I was kind of confused because I thought they were playing a pretty soft coverage, to be honest. Like they were kind of backing off a little bit, just letting them take what they kind of wanted. They weren't giving anything up over the top, right? But when you're giving up, 8 to 15 yards of play, it adds up quick. They get down the field fast. I mean, it just, I don't know. It felt weird to me because in the first game, I really thought that they set the tone. Which, I mean, I understand that we're playing against a team maybe at a little bit of a lower level with Coastal, where we should be able to do that, right? But that's also a mentality thing, like in my opinion. I thought that part of it was kind of missing a little bit, at least early on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of that's one of my biggest knocks on Rudd in general is I feel like he lets those backs play a little bit too cushion, a little bit too soft, and we sacrifice that. They sacrificed that underneath in order to not let the ball go over top. Man, I was really hoping that we would see them move away from that, just given the overall talent and size on the back end now. I know in the past they just haven't had the speed to be able to keep up. I thought they do now. And I still believe that they do. We've seen it in different places. So, yeah, like that would be my biggest concern is, moving ahead is do we start seeing more of these, everyone's, safety sitting at 15, 20 yards deep, corners, dropping at, 8, 15 yards, like you said, instead of playing up on and trying to disrupt some of those routes, especially if you're not going to get any sort of disruption up front and you're just going to let a quarterback sit in some sort of a rhythm. They're going to, like, D1 quarterbacks are too good now. They're going to pick you apart, and they've learned from the tree of Aaron Rodgers to just take that 8 yards, like you said, and get into a rhythm, and suddenly it takes them 6 plays to get down the field instead of 4. They're still there. So,
yeah, I'm kind of with you. I kind of want to see these guys maybe run with some receivers a little bit. I'm with you. I do think there's probably more speed there than we've had in recent years. Maybe it's still not enough. I mean, I don't know for sure without having seen it to know, but I'd like to see it given an opportunity, right? Like that's what we're wanting out of this.
yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty good though about how the defense has played. Going back to, we talked about third down on the offense. Well, on the defensive side, truthfully, they've probably been a good bit better. So on defense, third down, they've given up let convert 12%. That's number one ACC, number two in the entire country. And they're doing this without what I would say. I mean, they have Jameer Carter, right? But their two big leaders on the back end, Cam
Yeah.
Robinson, Antonio Clary, neither of them have been on the field. So I mean, this is really good stuff from a new group, a fairly, I won't say inexperienced to the game, but inexperienced within the system group, right?
Yeah.
That's really good numbers there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the thing. And it's something I had honestly forgotten until midway through the Women American. I saw someone posted, or maybe it was even after Women American, someone posted, oh, Elliott said he's expecting Cam and Clary back this week for Stanford, and it kind of hit me. I had forgotten that the two of them just haven't been able to go so far, just because they, out of sight, out of mind. It's kind of how it works in my world, and so, and I think they're coming back. It's not necessarily even their athletic ability that's going to be the boost. It's going to be that leadership, like you said, that experience in the system. That just the big bust I've seen this year. Most of them have been not so much that we've been out athleted. It's been that there's just been a breakdown in communication at some point. And that's again to be expected with this many new faces. I mean, I see it all day on Saturday across the board from not just the Who's. It's across college football when you're seeing so many teams, essentially replacing an entire defensive unit every year. You got to have some guys in there with some experience and some knowledge, or just kind of can help guide everyone. So, yeah, I think that's going to be great. Yes, it's going to be a huge asset. I don't feel bad about this unit. There are moments I get a little sketchy about them, but overall, I think let's see them at health. Let's see what they can do at health. And I think, they'll rise to the occasion. Those third down numbers that you just quoted are amazing. If you're getting off the field on third down, everything else is going to be fine. You can afford to bend a little bit. And I think that's the key. And then, like I said, they're not giving up points. Not really at this point, giving up 19 a game, which isn't bad. So,
yeah, and again, that's including, it wasn't a conference game, but an ACC opponent, right? And NC State on the road, nonetheless. I mean,
most that's almost all because
three
of the
games
NC State
is
game.
an incredible number.
Yeah. I mean, it's all basically because of that game, essentially, right? I mean, outside of that NC State game, what has it been? It's been like 7-7, 7-14, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah, it's basically been that one game that's been the difference, outlier, and I don't think NC State is a solid middle tier team in the ACC. They're on our level. They're on the Who's level. It's the upper echelon tier, which I'm not quite sure is on it right now, but there is a tier 1, and then there's a tier 2-ish, which is teams 3 through 6, 3 through 7, or 4 through 8, somewhere in that range. And those teams are all pretty evenly matched, and the Who's are in there with the NC State, maybe a Wake, who knows, and a couple others.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think if at the very least, they're right there on the edge of getting into that, if nothing else. I think even the biggest doubter of what they've seen based off previous experiences could say that if you're saying that the second tier ends at 8, that the Who's are number 9. You know what I mean? I don't
exactly.
think the most doubtful person could say beyond that, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been seeing them. I see, you read On3s or ESPNs or Sports Illustrated. Everyone kind of has had them floating in that 7 to 9 range, and I think that feels about right. I think they might be a little bit better than I'm a little bit more bullish on them, but yeah, they're in that range. And the thing is with that range, especially in this ACC, it's one pass. They're all about equal. It's not like there's a glaring difference between that 9 spot and that 4 spot. It's who makes the right play in the right matchup at that day, and
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that, but it's literally true, because if Chandler made the right play, I mean, not to kick him, but again, if he wouldn't have thrown the pick and could have gotten the hopefully walk-in touchdown to Twitty, I mean, maybe he does, I don't know, but it felt like he could have, looking at that play. It felt to be pretty easy. That one play, truthfully, I believe separates the Who's from being ranked this year. I think if they would have won that game, even if it would have just been by the 1 or 2 points from the touchdown, that they'd probably be about 24th or so. I mean, I don't think they'd be highly ranked. I'm not trying to say they're top 15 or anything like that, but I think they'd be on the back end of the rankings. And I think these people doing these projections like this would have them at probably either 4th or 5th in the ACC. Truthfully, I mean, just from what they've seen. 3-0, got that road win if they would have done it. I know it's a what if fantasy world, but just for people that are kind of doubting, like, this is how close this team really is. It's literally a matter of one play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way college football works in general. You're absolutely right. Morris throws the ball out of bounds, Morris moonwalks out of bounds, and just they live to play another day, and they win that game, let's say, for however 3-0, you're averaging 500 yards of offense a game. You have a road win against an in-conference opponent. I don't care what the technical rule on that game is. It's an in-conference opponent on week 2. When voters look at that stuff, they're going to look at who you beat. They're going to look at your record, look at who you beat, and look at how did you beat them. And in that case, you would see 2 massive blowouts and a solid win on the road. Everyone's say, all right, that's about it. And then everyone's see the offensive numbers. And everyone's say, all right, that's good enough to at least get you votes for 24-25. And that might be enough votes in there to get you into that ranking. It's just, again, I watched way too much college football. I don't see this. This is the first time in 4 years I've not been like, oh, yeah, we're playing a different sport than everyone else is, which I felt oftentimes in the last 4 or 5 years, and that's just not the case right now. I'm like, yeah, they're pretty middle of the road, which is fine. That gives, especially in this conference, that may not have a true big dog in it right now. The ACC Wheel of Destiny, as they say, like, it's going to give you a shot.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll try to wrap up the defense. I don't want the show to go too terribly long, but we'll kind of do the same thing with the good and the bad, I guess. I'll let you want to start this time since I did the offense first.
Sure. I think the good, I got to go with that third down stat you gave earlier, not to steal the thunder, but if you're holding teams, just I think you said 11 to 12% right there for conversion. What was it?
12%.
Yeah, that speaks for itself. And the bad, I would say, is the communication that I've kind of seen on the back end that needs to be cleaned up, and just kind of that understanding where people are going. And I'm hopefully getting some experience back on the field here this week, next week. We'll need to clean up a lot of that.
Yeah, so you kind of took both things I was going to say, so maybe I should have said I'll go first, but that's okay. I'll try to deviate a little bit, I guess. So the good, I guess I'll say, I've been pretty happy with some of these guys whose numbers have been called to step up in these situations with these bad we've referenced being out. I mentioned it in our preseason show with Jackie, but I thought that Mentor had a chance to really solidify himself. He's probably not going to start over Cleary, obviously, but to stay on the field.
Yeah.
And he's been good. I mean, I've been very happy with him. The little bit of time that Christian Charles has gotten, I've thought he's looked pretty decent at least.
He's got 8 tackles on the season, a sack. I mean, he's one of the better players who are going right now.
Yeah. And then same thing, in the middle with Cam being out, I think that Danley's been pretty good. And I think, was it Maddox Marcellus? I think he's been really good. Like, I've really enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah, he's been a fun surprise. That's a great shout out for him right there.
Yeah. And then maybe on the kind of not so great end, I guess. I really don't even think they've been bad. I'll bring it up since our guy Josh asked about it on here. I don't know. I guess I kind of just expected maybe more out of the defensive line, which I don't think is probably fair to them because it's more or less me in my head, like what I'm thinking as opposed to what I should realistically expect, which as a big fan, usually those two things don't always correlate, like sometimes you just expect more than you probably should. But I think that I've been kind of surprised by I won't say there's anything bad. Like, I'm not trying to say it in a negative way, but the lack of like really good, if that makes sense. Like, there hasn't been a game yet where I thought one of the defensive linemen really stood out, if that makes sense. But I also don't think that they've stood out in a negative way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I would say I love that assessment of that. But that's the problem with it, is that the fact that I really can't call in their names for having a standout performance 3 games in is. Yeah, it just isn't good. And when they've needed to show up, at the end of the day, NC State did kind of gash them, and so that's hard to look at. I just pulled it up. They have 4 sacks as a unit or across the entire defense this year. Obviously, that's mostly on the defensive line's responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see a little bit more. Again, they're not getting chewed up, they're not getting abused, but I just expected more. I'm with you. I expected more out of this unit this year. I thought this was going to be a potential strong part of the defense, and it's okay. They're basically where they were previously, which is okay, but compared to where we've seen upgrades everywhere else across the board, for them to still be coasting along just doesn't quite. The gap looks more.
Yeah, it does. And I even, I thought too with like some of the depth that we have, which I mean, I guess, like Buchanan's still been out, that's one thing that's kind of affected a little, I mean, I guess, but they're still, I mean, they're rolling more than two deep, and that's more than they've ever had with or without
Yeah.
injuries right now, right? So like it's just I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not trying to kick them because they haven't been bad by any means, but it is, I guess, disappointing, maybe the best word.
Yeah, we had high expectations for them, and I think it's fair to say that those expectations have not been met, which I don't
Yeah.
think that's a knock on them. It's just they are the truest definition of mid. And if you think back to what mid was originally meant to be, it just means mid level. Not bad, but also not exemplary. And that's where they kind of are right now.
Oh yeah. So covered both sides of the ball. So now we'll start looking at some games. First thing we'll do, we'll go over the Stanford game, and then we'll do a general season outlook. Kind of where the vibes are, how we're feeling, where we think things will end up. Not that you necessarily have to be held to it, but just kind of where it'll be fun to look at how you felt today versus how we are. After week 7, for example. I don't know, just something
Yeah.
to see. What do you think, though, Drag? I know you've done a little bit of diving on Stanford. Um, I don't know how good or bad that is about to be, but
I don't know why I've done this. I blame the LRA forum for this. This is somehow or another I got roped into this conversation about Stanford all week, and I've spent way too much time on them. I did watch the BC game last week out of curiosity and just knowing that they were coming up next for the Who's. BC was awful in that game. They did everything they could to possibly beat themselves. Stanford was there. This is not a good team. I don't know any way to put it. There's no other way to put it. I got into a huge discussion about their quarterback, Ben Gulbranson, and I totally forgotten he was the guy who came over from Oregon State due to what happened at BYU's quarterback getting kicked out, and yada, 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 yada. Anyway, the kid's been in college for 5 years now. He's a 58% career passer. He's basically I think he's got 15 touchdowns, 13 interceptions on his career. Like, these are all stats that in most places will get you fired. And I don't know any other way to put it. On this season, he's got 1 touchdown to 3 picks for a grand total of he's passing the ball for 145 yards a game. And just hasn't put up much. He just hasn't. As a team, Stanford just hasn't put up much. I mean, you're talking about a team that's averaging about 20 points a game right now. Let's see. I just had it up. Oh, no, 17 points a game right now in total offense. And that included a pick 6 last week to actually help get them to that marker. They lost to Hawaii in the start of the season. They got handled solidly by an okay BYU team in week 2. And then they got by Boston College at home last week. There ain't a lot here. There's no point in really breaking it down a whole lot. This is an ACC game, which is great, but this team is definitely not NC State level. Probably maybe a small step up from what we saw against Coastal, but not, in all honesty, not really.
No.
Yeah, that's all I got.
It's crazy. I didn't even, want to go into this, but just like because you said it made me think about it. How crazy is it that this is an ACC game, right? Playing Stanford, but playing NC State was not because we had to play Stanford as an ACC game. Like whatever. It's not that big of a deal. It's just
Yeah, don't even give me.
I guess.
This conference.
Just hearing it out loud, just like, oh man, the way it like registers in your brain, just like, come on, like, gosh.
Yeah, I had someone ask me during the NC State game, like, so why is this not a league game? And I was just like, I was trying to explain it to him, and I kind of understand it, but at the same time, I was just like, or some shit. This is dumb. Like, I don't know any other way to put it. This is stupid. And there's no other way to put it than that. Let's just enjoy the game and move on.
Yeah, agree completely. So looking at the game, who's 15.5 point favorite? The over under on this is set at 49.5. I don't want to go too deep into the betting stuff, but I'm thinking the Who's might actually just beat that themselves. Like that might be a one team's line. They just got it miscombobulated here. I don't know.
Oh my goodness! I'm sorry.
But,
I usually don't look at lines till Friday when I start to do my picks. But my God, I might just have to lay a bet on a Wednesday night for an over. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. I love that. I feel like that's Vegas calling out to me and trying to trick me into thinking that this game is actually going to be a little bit slower and a little bit more mundane, a la what happened with Oregon and Northwestern last week. But my goodness, that's a low line.
I mean, what
Yeah,
are
they
they even
open it.
expecting in that? Like a 31-17-ish game, I guess? I mean, roughly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's similar. I'm thinking like that's what happened. Oregon had a similar line last week against Northwestern. Oregon had been blowing. I think they'd outscored opponents like 120-12 or something like that going in, and they won a game like 34-14 or something like that. And the line was 48 and a half. So absolutely manhandled them, took care of business, but just didn't quite take care of business that way. This game could be very similar to that. That 15 is interesting because it opened up at 17 and a half and it's already come down. And I just think it's just the money coming in, which I don't blame. I think it's right. It kind of leveled itself off to a right place. Yeah, I mean, the Virginia is just a more talented team. It's a much more talented, much more well-drilled team. I kind of wish they were playing this game at noon just to stick it to them a little bit more. But and also I just feel like that 7:30 slot on ACC Network, just weird things happen. No matter who it, I just feel like that's just like a tainted, dirty slot for college football. But yeah, I don't have too many worries about this one.
No, I don't either. I mean, I guess the one thing that to me is kind of going in the favor of Stanford is that this game did get a night slot. Having to travel all the way across the country, getting to play at 7:30 as opposed to say a 12 or even 3 o'clock game might have been a little harder on them. I mean, I guess that kind of works for them, but outside of that, yeah, I'm with you. I don't put much. Let's go through this game. Nobody gets hurt. Let's just take care
Bingo.
of business. Honestly, if it's a clean, no injury game, I wouldn't even care if there's a couple mental mistakes and we only win by like 10-14. It really wouldn't bother me that much as long as we
Yeah,
get out of this one unscathed and just get ready for the big one. At least in my mind, I'm excited for seeing Florida State next week.
yeah,
Hopefully we keep that in check, in our own minds on the field too, of like, hey, we do have to show up and beat another ACC team before we get to that, but
yeah,
I'm with
yeah.
you. This game is one that, I'm excited to watch, but it just no injuries. That's all we're after.
Yeah, you're 100%. You're right, and it does. If they were to blow it somehow, that everyone, but it's a perfect trap game. You're looking ahead to number 10 coming to your house next week on a Friday night under the lights, and it's really easy to. It's going to be hard to get hyped up for this team, and so this is where the staff's really got to find a reason to make it personal and find a reason to keep the team focused on taking care of business, like you said. And let's just get in, treat it like a business trip. Get to the team hotel, get fed up, get hydrated, get in there, whip their butts, and get it back out of there. So that's out of Scott as soon as you can, and get back home and stay healthy.
Oh yeah. So going off that, I just did a kind of a quick breakthrough while we were talking. Just using ESPN's football power stuff. It's the quickest, easiest way for me to look real fast. It looks like, they obviously don't set lines out, but so far, each week.
Mm-hmm.
But the Who's should be favored in all but 3 contests left. So the 3 that it's looking like they might be a dog or slight dog, something of that nature in,
Mm-hmm.
is Florida State, Louisville, and then a trip to Cal, who has actually been surprisingly good so far.
I was wondering, yeah, that Cal one is kind of the weird outlier late in the season now. But yeah, I think that's fair. Like I wouldn't, I don't believe in making lines 6 weeks out, especially in college football, because it's just too wonky. But if I had to eyeball it, yeah, I think we said it before. I said it before we went on air. Obviously, I see it as being a dog to State in Florida State in a couple of weeks. No problem there. Louisville, I can see it as being a 3-point dog on the road there, 3.5 maybe. And then that Cal game, I give them a 2-point home field advantage going into it as things stand. What's that? 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, sure. But I mean, the schedule tees up about as pretty as you could hope for. Washington State's awful. North Carolina might. I know people are burying them. I still have a little bit of concern that they might get it together. Their defense is okay, and it's Bill Belichick. Wake is not good. I watched their NC State game. They made that game closer than it needed to be, more so because Bailey was just a little bit off in the pocket than anything else. And once NC State and Bailey kind of started clicking in the second half, they ran away with that game pretty easily. I don't know what Duke is, to be honest with you. When I look at them, there are more questions about other teams when I look at our schedule. I'm not sure what to expect out of Duke, but that late in the season, I don't know if that team's going to be checked out on Manny Diaz or not. And then, of course, Vatek, I don't know what they're going to be come Thanksgiving. So,
Yeah, easily the hardest to call. I will say that Duke game now, the ESPN thing here has it. I think it was like 52-48 as far as the percentages go. It's a lean to UVA, but
Yeah,
they're not convinced yet. Which I mean, it's kind of tough to be too when you had teams ranked higher to begin. They played 3 games.
yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, they look terrible against Illinois. Like I said, their defense has been disappointing. What's his name? A quarterback they brought in. They spent a lot of money on him. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype. I don't know.
Mensa.
They're on the road again. That's another one of those ones. It's on the. If they're in Charlottesville, I say UVA. Yeah, definitely gets a 3-4% lean there. They're on the road. Duke's a weird place to play. It's a weird atmosphere. You don't quite know what you're going to get. Also, plus to the Wake Forest game is I'll be there for that one, so that's an automatic win. Who's don't lose when Dragons in the house most of the time. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking to make sure I had it right. I tuned in a little bit to some of the Duke game Saturday night when they were playing Tulane, and their quarterback was brought over from Tulane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was he was like one of the big names coming out into the portal. They paid a lot of money to get him too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they haven't been too great, but we'll see. So just kind of looking at those numbers though, that we have 1 loss already, right? That's 3 more projected losses, we'll call it. That puts the Hoos at that 8-4 mark that we were kind of beating the drum on in the season preview show, right? Like that's where I felt. I said there's a path to 9, but I feel confident in 8. I still feel confident in 8. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, obviously you got to take care of business, but I mean that's the case no matter what. You got to take care of business. You can't lose a game you're supposed to win. And luckily, yeah, most of those games that we're supposed to win are none of them. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm putting on my orange and blue glasses, hoping they win. I'm looking at all of them very objectively, like there's no reason they should lose any of those games. And then again, even those 3 that are projected losses outside the Florida State game, any one of those could be a win. Louisville does scare me a little bit. That's a pretty good team they got going right now, but that Cal game can go either way, But yeah, I think 8. Drive for 8. I'm all in for it for the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll check back in on this. We're going to try to do this show weekly, so we'll be able to reflect on these moments. But that's where the vibes are right now. Like things are feeling good. I'm not going to go crazy and say, oh, they can't win 10 games. I made a joke I think in the forum about people saying if we were undefeated, how people be talking about a playoff team. I was like, what? You don't think because 11-1 wouldn't get us in? Like, what are we talking? I'm not trying to say that. That was a joke. Clearly,
you mess around with the ACC. That's fine.
But
we win the ACC, we get a home game. We get a home playoff game, right?
I'll tell you what. Before we get too deep into these shows, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research on how bowl selection works because I've been going back and forth in my mind. Like, am I mad that State beat us because they could get the Pop-Tart Bowl over us now, or am I glad it wasn't an ACC game? That way, if we can, not run the table, but win more than we lose and finish above them standings wise, it doesn't matter. We get that selection.
That's a whole other wrinkle to that weird situation. I had not thought that does screw up the bowl selection process, I would imagine, because we could still finish above them in the.
Yeah, I mean they have the head-to-head, but like if we finish above them, I think that's what they go by. I don't know.
Right, that's typically how it's always been.
I don't know about the next show, but before the end of the season to have to know.
We'll figure it out. It's fine. We got time. I told you we're gonna be eating salsa and chips and salsa and having some Modelo's out there in the Tornado Tiger Bowl in El Paso coming up. So that's where we're gonna be. Just embrace it.
That's okay though because that one. So I'm trying to remember. It used to be the Sun Bowl, right?
Yes, it's the old Sun Bowl.
Sun Bowl, I guess.
Yeah, now it's the Tornado Tigers Sun Bowl or something like that. Yeah,
that one has kind of its own prime thing too, right? Like it's on TV during bowl week when people are generally kind of all.
Yeah, it's got its own standalone game.
Like it's kind of a marquee one.
Yeah, it's one of the more marquee games. It's a CBS game. It's got like what is it, like a third or something like that, or it's its own night. So yeah, it's a bowl game that has some history to it. It's not just a made-up bowl game that didn't exist. Like the Sun Bowl's been around for a long time. It has some history. I think there's even got a parade that doesn't involve condiments or whatever. So
yeah. I don't know if we want to be dumping mayo on anybody. I don't know how we'll feel about that.
That's not a good look. But I don't care what they say.
I did see on, I think it was ESPN, how they do their bowl projections every week. And right now there are 2 that they had the Who's in. One was the Gasparilla Bowl and the other was the, whatever you call the Armed Forces Bowl, the one in Annapolis that we never want to speak of again.
I would be so pissed if they end up in that game. I'm sorry. I'm so sick of going to bowl games in the Mid-Atlantic. It's the dumbest thing ever. I'm
Yeah.
over it.
No, I agree with that. We a buddy of mine and I went when they played Navy at Navy, in that
It,
game and whatever it's called in Annapolis. And man, if I tell you what, that was the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. That day, I think the actual temp was like 5 degrees. But because Annapolis is right there on the
yeah,
water,
right down the
it
water.
was
You had
like
the wind
negative
coming in.
18 or something, just because it was so windy. I have never been so cold in my entire life. Like I never want to do that again.
Yeah, no, I say I don't want to go north for a game. I understand I live in the South now, but I still think of myself as a Virginian living in the Commonwealth. If you're going north for your bowl game, your season did not go the way that you wanted it to go. I'm sorry. It's just the way that it is. No one wants to go to Annapolis, Maryland in December. And I love Annapolis during crab season, but it ain't crab season in December.
Hmm.
So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
there's great times to go, right? But that time is not the was it the last week of December? Like no,
Yeah,
that is not
exactly.
when you
That's
want to
not
be
one of them.
there. There
Exactly.
are great times to go. That's not it. But anyway, that kind of wraps up our show for the night. Like I said, Dragon and I will be back. We're going to try to do this weekly as the season goes on. We hope everybody can tune in. If you have any questions, we're always on forum. Feel free to join us if you're not there. You can pitch in thoughts. There's a nice gambling page that Dragon runs if you're into sports betting.
You want to make some
Uh,
money? Just
yeah,
play.
you want to
You
make
won't.
some money. He's got
You
a
won't.
nice hit rate. It's
You
good
won't.
stuff. But yeah, feel free to join us, man. We love having this type of stuff. I personally am just excited to have good talk about football again because I
Yeah.
really don't know that I could have done these shows the last couple seasons. Just to be completely
Oh
honest, like
gosh. Yeah.
it feels good to have a good time finally. Thanks for
Yeah.
that, Jen. Have a good night too. But we will be back next week. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Go Who's.
Thank y'all. Go Who's.